I am a 26-year-old female, and my boyfriend is 28. We have been dating for 2 years before I met Sophia. I met Sophia at my yoga class. We were next to each other for 2 sessions before we introduced ourselves to each other. A few sessions later, we became close friends and would often grab food after our yoga workout. Sophia was so adventurous and interesting. I soon found out that she was into alternative lifestyles and that she and her husband were practicing open marriage. Sophia was also 26 years old and had a 3-year-old son with her husband. When Sophia first told me about her open marriage, I was initially judgmental. I couldn't understand how she convinced her husband to agree to her having sex with other people. She explained that he only approved when they did it together with another couple and had predetermined boundaries. After that conversation, I couldn't stop thinking about it. At the time, I had been dating my boyfriend for 2 years, and although I loved him, our bedroom life was becoming boring. We used to have sex every day when we first started dating, but now we were lucky to have it twice a week. The issue wasn't from his end, but from mine. I was having trouble getting in the mood, and it was starting to feel like a chore. I started to consider if this was something we needed to do to spice up our relationship, but I was unsure of how my boyfriend would feel about it. Every time I talked to Sophia, she would tell me about the new couple they had met. I was surprised to learn that there were so many swinger communities and that I hadn't heard of them before. Sophia always seemed happy and excited about her lifestyle. I asked her what would happen if her husband became jealous, and she explained that he would only be jealous if she was going out on her own and meeting other men. But since she was the one finding couples for them to swing with, he had the final say on whether they would participate or not. This gave him the illusion of control. Sophia also mentioned that her husband was the one who introduced her to this lifestyle. She also made it clear that she did not engage in certain sexual acts such as oral sex, swallowing, or anal sex. I was curious as to why Sophia never pressured me to join them in swinging. In a strange way, I started to feel insecure, thinking that maybe I didn't make the cut. It bothered me, but I didn't bring it up with her. However, when I went home that day, I spoke to my boyfriend about Sophia's lifestyle. He didn't react with any curiosity like I did. I didn't inquire if he would be interested in that sort of lifestyle. One evening, after I had lunch with Sophia, she invited me to a wild party with 3 couples. She told me that I didn't have to do anything. All I had to do was watch. I was nervous but jumped at the idea of watching people engage in sexual activities in front of me. It was a voyeuristic experience that I didn't expect to enjoy. She asked me to invite my boyfriend, but I told her that he wasn't ready for that. I drove to the meetup location where the party was supposed to take place. The house belonged to one of the couples. It was a single-family home in an affluent neighborhood. The house was well decorated with pictures of their kids and dogs on the wall. I didn't know what kind of people to expect, but they looked like normal, decent Americans in their early to mid-30s. All 3 couples were present, including Sophia and her husband. The mood was festive and cordial, like a 1970s hippie get-together. They started playing some house music. There was no hard liquor, just wine and champagne. No drugs were present. They had a space in the middle of the living room that was large enough to fit 4 beds. I was having a normal conversation with one of the men before I started hearing moaning noises coming from the other room. Everyone just carried on their conversation like it was no big deal. The man I was speaking with soon left to watch another couple engaging in sexual activities on the sofa. Before I knew it, it was all pandemonium, and I sat in the corner and watched like I was watching a live show on Broadway. I was extremely aroused, and although I was shy, I would have joined if they had asked. When I went home that night, I ravished my husband like I had never done before. It was the best night of my life with him. The thought of having multiple men at the same time drove me wild, and that was all I could think about when he was inside of me. All the arousal stemmed from the event I witnessed earlier. Now I knew why Sophia wouldn't stop talking about it. I was captivated. I wanted to be a part of that community, and I wanted my boyfriend to be there with me. I witnessed how polite and respectful everyone was, and it gave me butterflies in my stomach. The next time I met Sophia, I told her that I would like my boyfriend to join us, but I didn't know how to bring up the topic with him. I asked Sophia for some advice, and she wanted to meet with my boyfriend in person. I showed her pictures of him, and she thought he would be a good fit for the lifestyle. Thought he was cute. I invited Sophie to dinner one evening, and she was dressed to kill. My boyfriend already knew Sophie was into that lifestyle, so he was interested in meeting her, although he tried to hide it. I noticed by how my boyfriend looked at Sophie that he was into her. After Sophie left, before we went to bed, I asked my boyfriend if he would be interested in being intimate with Sophie. He looked at me for a moment and replied, "Of course." I then asked him how he would feel if I had sex with Sophie's husband. He responded, "I suppose if I'm being intimate with his wife, then I can understand why he would want to be intimate with you." The following week, I invited Sophie for dinner again, and my boyfriend was all over her. However, she kept her distance, which was part of our plan. I wanted to make him crave the idea of being with Sophie. I felt a twinge of jealousy, but the thought of exploring other men with my boyfriend's permission was something I looked forward to. The sex with my boyfriend after the party was unforgettable, and I wanted to experience it again. After Sophie left, my boyfriend couldn't stop talking about opening up our relationship. It was a great plan because not only was he into it, but we also made it seem like it was his idea, so he wouldn't feel pressured. The following week, we were invited to a party with 6 couples, including us, 5 other men and women. I was surprised by how much my boyfriend was into it. During the orgy, we didn't even make eye contact. He was completely focused on other women. On our drive home, I could tell he enjoyed it, maybe a little too much. I was only intimate with 3 of the men, but he was intimate with all 5 women, including Sophie. I couldn't help feeling jealous. From then on, all he talked about was our experiences with other couples. Our sex life in the bedroom came to a halt. We went from being intimate twice a week to not at all. The only time we were intimate was with other couples. What bothered me the most during the orgies was how my boyfriend would show off. He would try to be the center of attention at every party we attended. He was doing too much. He made sure to be intimate with all the women at the party. I felt like he was getting carried away, and I was losing him. He was still the love of my life, and even though I enjoyed being intimate with other men, I still wanted to spend the rest of my life with him and start a family soon. After 7 months and countless parties with other couples, I decided that we should end our arrangement and focus on starting a family together. I wasn't getting any younger, and most of the couples we encountered already had children. 2 weeks after we made the decision to stop, I found out that my boyfriend had been sneaking behind my back to be intimate with other women. At some point, I realized that our relationship was no longer what it used to be. It seemed he wasn't as sure about me as I was about him. Even at that point, my mind never thought about a breakup. But one day, out of nowhere, he said, "Let's break up." I thought it was a joke. We didn't even fight or quarrel, although I caught him lying about sleeping with other women after we decided to stop. I didn't yell at him or threaten to break up with him because of it. He just woke up one morning and decided he didn't want me anymore. And that was it. How could something this beautiful and calm come to an end just like that? I blamed myself for introducing an open relationship to him. I tried to stop him from leaving, but my efforts didn't work. I asked Sophie and other couples to talk to him, but he wouldn't listen to anyone. He made his decision and stuck to it. I realized I was fighting a losing battle, so I put down my apology ammo and decided to move on too. It wasn't easy for me, but I had to learn to let him go bit by bit each day. I went around looking for someone to replace him. I even cut contact with Sophie and other couples. I was looking for someone like my boyfriend, but I couldn't find anyone who understood me the way he did. I kept looking for traces of him in the men who approached me. I searched their faces for resemblance. I listened to them laugh, just to see if their laughter sounded like him. I wondered if they could speak the language of my soul the way he did. I grieved what I had lost for weeks, and it affected my job. My friends and family came to my aid when the going got tough. They helped me get back on my feet. When I had healed completely, I decided to stay off relationships for a while. But my friends wouldn't hear of it. They told me, "You're not getting any younger. Very soon you'll have to settle down with someone. You have to date someone before you get to that point. The earlier you start, the better. You just have to be very cautious out there and cut ties with people in that crazy community." I took their advice and entered the dating arena again, but this time with a guarded heart. I went out with a couple of guys, but I never really saw myself committing to any of them. One day, I was coming back from lunch when I saw a married man that I had been with when I was still with my boyfriend. We only did it once, so we didn't know each other that well. We started talking, and he told me that last week my boyfriend and Sophie came to a party together. I was shocked when he told me that, but I acted like I was already aware of it. I couldn't believe Sophie would betray me like that. I felt sick to my stomach. My stomach was in knots, and he asked me if I was okay. I reassured him that I was fine. We ended our conversation quickly. He asked for my number, so we exchanged numbers, and I went back to work. I called my ex-boyfriend and confronted him about what happened. That's when he revealed that he was still involved in swinging and occasionally joined Sophie. I remembered that Sophie had lied about her husband allowing her to swing alone. I later found out that her husband didn't mind her going without him. I confronted Sophie and she apologized, saying that she wasn't exclusive with my ex-boyfriend and that he didn't leave me for her. She also mentioned that she was still with her husband. I felt betrayed by her and told her to never contact me again. My experience with my ex-boyfriend and Sophie had left a mark on me. I couldn't just live in the moment anymore. Even though my ex had left me, I was still interested in his life and curious about his lifestyle. I felt like we had a strong connection that couldn't easily be broken. I believed that once he got over his swinging phase, he would come back to me. One day, out of the blue, I called the married man to get more information about him. We started talking and getting closer to each other. I was feeling lonely and wanted to be intimate with someone. I thought that since I had already been intimate with him, it would be easier to just be friends with benefits. Plus, he was a married man, so I didn't expect him to get too emotional. I hoped that I would end things with him as soon as I found someone who was right for me. I told myself that I was only enjoying his company and nothing more. I promised myself that I wouldn't get involved with him because he was married. But each day something new would happen that would sway my mind away from my mantra. I didn't know how or when it happened, but before I knew it, we were dating. Not just dating, but I was deeply in love with him. I often asked myself what had changed. How did I fall in love with a married man? What kind of mess was this? I would tell myself I would tell you. It was a mess that I enjoyed, but later felt guilty about. At the beginning of our love affair, I told him that he should stop swinging, and he agreed to only be intimate with me and his wife. That's what he told me, although I had no way of making sure that he wasn't still swinging. I made him promise me that one day, when I found someone I loved and had a future with, all of this would come to an end. And then one day, my ex-boyfriend came crawling back into my life. He came with regrets and apologized for what happened, how he left me when I needed him the most, and how he didn't listen to me when I begged him to stay. I told him that I was partly to blame for opening up our relationship. We always had that strong connection, so it was easy for us to pick back where we left off. He's more mature now than he was when we were together. He talked about settling down with me as soon as possible, and everything he does shows that he's ready to settle down. I spoke to the married man in my life. I said, my ex is back in my life. He didn't come to play this time. He promised to build a family with me. As we discussed some time ago, I think the day has come for us to end this thing that we have. He said, oh, that's good. I'm happy for you, but you have to be careful with him this time around. Test the waters before you dive in. That's all I wanted, to come to an agreeable end, to part ways without a fight, to have the opportunity to switch from loving a married man to loving someone that I can call my own. I broke up with him, but it looks like matters of the heart aren't as easy as ABCD. The people we give a piece of ourselves to are not that easy to let go of. The legend of the old flame is true, so I can't seem to let go of the married man. I am deeper in love with him than I thought. To make matters worse, his marital status doesn't bother me. When I sleep with my boyfriend, I dream of doing it not just with the married man, but with multiple men. That was the only way my boyfriend could get me to finish. It doesn't bother me that he may still be into that lifestyle. I get jealous sometimes, because I know he was lying to me about it. I still sleep with the married man and don't feel guilty about it anymore. My conscience is sealed. I have tried different ways to let go. Sometimes I turn my mind not to care, but immediately I see him. My mind behaves as if the turning didn't work. We see each other almost every day. We work in the same complex. That was the major challenge for me now. I know I don't have any chance with him, yet he has become something that I can't live without. I've tried so many ways to avoid him, but I always end up sinking deeper and deeper. To make matters worse, my boyfriend is now as loyal as ever. Our bedroom life is exciting, partly because I fantasize about doing it with other men when I'm doing it with him. It's not that I'm not aroused by my boyfriend, but thinking about multiple partners or other men makes it even more exciting. 3 months after my boyfriend came back to me, I found out that I was pregnant. I was sure it was his because I used protection with the other man. However, throughout my pregnancy, I continued to see the other man on the side until I gave birth.